Let's see some of the other DDL statements that we have not discussed so far. The first one is describe command. So if I type describe followed by a table name, it will actually show me the metadata of the table. So it says order ID string and product ID string. These are the two columns which are defined on this particular table. We can also use a command called show create table. Let's say you want to find out what is the bucket, etc., for the bucketed table. So I can mention customer underscore bucketed, show create table customers underscore bucketed, and if I execute this, it would show me the entire DDL statement that was used to create this particular table. So if you see, it shows create external table followed by the cluster ID into 6 buckets, row format SerDe, input format, output format is coming up from the row format SerDe Parquet, and these are the table properties. These of course are the default properties and the location. So this is show create table. Then we have show databases also. How many databases are there? These are of course Athena queries. You can look at these things from here also, what databases are there. Then we are actually connected to Iceberg part bucket. I can look at the tables also, show tables, and if I execute this, it will show me all the tables that are there. Then I can see the columns also using show columns from order items. It should execute and show the columns which are there from this particular table. Then we can look at show table properties also, like using what properties the table was created. So if I execute this, it will show me all the table properties that was used to create this table. So let's say customers underscore bucketed. I don't think I mentioned any table properties. So okay, so there are certain table properties like bucketing format is Hive because it is using Hive format bucketing. Then the total size, the external number of files, bucketing version, so on and so forth. So you can see the table properties also. So these are the additional DDL statements that I wanted to show you. These are some handy commands. So you can run these commands without looking at the console itself. Now there are a few other things that I want to show you in the console before closing this particular section. So we have already seen that what are the options available, right? So let's say if I do a select star and if I execute the query, it gives me various information, and these information are very important. For example, it shows the total amount of data scanned. In this case, it is 134 MB. The execution time was 4.4 seconds and the time in queue is 123 milliseconds. In the results, it shows the number of rows that this particular query retrieved. We can actually copy this entire page also using this particular. There are a few other things also like query stats. So in the query stats, you can see the time spent by this particular query. So what was the total runtime? It was 4.6 seconds. And out of this 4.6 seconds, how much was execution, how much was planning, how much was pre-processing, and how much was queuing. We can get further execution details also. Again, I'll talk about it in the query optimization part, but in the execution details, it tells you the number of stages, etc. So what is the execution time? It was just 2.1 seconds. Then here again, we have reuse query results. So if you enable this, what would happen is that the query result would be cached and it would be stored in S3, and next time when you execute, it will not go to the files, it'll just show us the output. So you can use this reuse query results also. And then there are some other things like keyboard shortcuts, etc., which are not important as such. And here you can see the recent queries or the queries that you have run. So if you see, we have run so many queries, and if you select this particular query, I'll show you what query was run, what was the output, how long did it take, how much was the data scanned, etc. So if I go again to the recent queries, let me go back to a maybe older query. So maybe page number 22. I did a select count star, and this was the output, which scanned 3 GB of data and took approximately 3.3 seconds. So we can get these many information from the recent queries, and if we just click on any of the execution ID, it will give us the details about the queries. Then I can save queries also. For example, if I run a query in the query editor, I can save it, and all those saved queries would be shown here. Then we have some settings also, and I have already shown you these settings. Here we provide the query result location where the query result would be stored. Now on the left hand side, we have the data source, the database, and the tables and views in Athena. So in Athena, I have not created any views. You already know what views are. But we have something called Workgroup. I have not talked about Workgroup, so we'll go ahead and create Workgroup in the WLM section. Then we have Notebook Editor. This is for Spark. And then we have Workflows. And in the administration, we'll go ahead and create workgroups. I'll also show you capacity reservations. So these are the things that the Athena console provides. So let's summarize section 1. So we started with Athena, and we know that Athena is based on Trino. So it runs Trino behind the scenes. And then we saw the architecture of Trino at a very, very high level. Then I discussed the use cases of Athena. I also talked about databases, tables, data types, various DDL and DML statements. Then we see the row and file formats. What are the various row formats and what are the various file formats? And you can extend the row format using SerDe. So SerDe is nothing but serialization, deserialization. For all the row formats, we have SerDe. Like for CSV, we have OpenCSV SerDe. For Parquet, we have Hive Parquet SerDe, etc. And if you do not want to give the SerDe row format SerDe properties, you can use the stored as also. Then we saw how execution parameters help us in sending dynamic query parameters. So we can use unload command to extract records to another location, because let's say we're running some aggregation queries. So those output of those aggregation queries would be stored in a separate S3 location. Then how schema evolution is handled in Athena, followed by Iceberg with Athena. What is Iceberg? Iceberg is basically an open table format which gives us the ability to do single row or multi-row update, inserts, deletes, and enabling lakehouse architecture on data lake, which is S3. Then the ACID property on Athena only applies to single rows, not multiple rows. So we do not have any transaction blocks as such. Then finally, we talked about partitioning and bucketing, which can be used to optimize the queries, to reduce the data scan, etc. Then I also told you at a very high level what optimization and vacuum does. And these are used for on Iceberg tables only. So that's all about section 1. Let's go to section 2, wherein I'll talk about the workload management in Athena.